Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your host, Jonny Lipsham.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Sunday Night Live over here at Jonny Lipsham Studios in Edinburgh, Scotland, the capital of the world, the universe, and everything else. I hope everyone is okay. I noticed that Alan, my good friend over in Glasgow at Photography, Light and Magic, is reporting that he has COVID. Go get yourself checked out. Given the kind of the way you described that you're feeling, I would suggest that you get yourself an ambulance if you're really feeling that bad. And you're absolutely certain that it's COVID, then I would suggest, yeah, definitely do that. Especially if you're having any breathing difficulties or anything like that. Definitely get an ambulance and don't hesitate about it. This is serious stuff. 140,000 people in the UK have died of this thing, so, and, you know, it's pretty serious stuff, so get yourself sorted straight away. Would be my advice. Don't watch my show. Go get yourself sorted out. You can catch me on the replay anytime, but right now, health is more important than watching me, so please go and do that. To everybody else, I would say a very good evening. This is going to be a short one because it is Easter Sunday. A very happy Easter to all of you who are celebrating it. We're unique in this household. We celebrate both Passover and Easter. And so kind of it's a win-win, really. It just means lots of food. And you can't go wrong with food. So, yes, I would suggest that you... Sorry, I'm getting distracted by the conversation here. Yes, this is going to be a short one because of the fact that it's Easter, and I don't want to keep you guys away from your families and the people that you care about, so you can celebrate with them and you can enjoy your dinner and all of that, because right now it's kind of 6 o'clock in the central time area of the United States, and I don't want to keep you from your dinner and celebrating Easter. So this will be a short one, maybe only about half an hour. And I do have one thing to show you. And then the rest of it is just going to be completely devoted to you guys' questions. Because I like to do questions every week. I think it's important that you guys get your questions in and hopefully I can answer them to the best of my ability. Questions about Studio One. Any issues that you may be experiencing with Studio One that maybe we can tackle out with a support ticket. But for the most part, if you've got crashes and things like that, make a support ticket. And either me or one of my other colleagues will deal with you. But yeah, questions are important. I want to be able to answer your questions on arranging, composing, songwriting, music production, as well as Studio One and mixing and mastering and all of that fun stuff that goes with it. All right, so who do we have here tonight? Let's go and take a look. Tony Stringer was first in the door. He was like nearly half an hour early, followed by Alan, who reported getting COVID. And Tony is quite correct. It's serious. Seek medical care at once. Absolutely. We got Kyle here as well. And we got Lollipop Guild. Awesome to see you. Welcome. Glad you're here. Thomas over in the Philippines is here. Kevin's Guitar Stories is here. That's awesome. Mika is here as well, which is also good to see. Old School Funk and Soul is here. He says, I have a friend, long-term friend who works for the BBC in Glasgow. Now has a long-term residual COVID. Yeah. Long-term COVID is nasty. Super duper nasty. Peter Brooks asks, actually getting a question in super sharp. He says, is it a good idea to run Studio One 5.2 in administrator mode? Some say yes, some say it doesn't really matter. I'm one of those that says it doesn't really matter. There are some things that you won't be able to do if you're running Studio One in administrator mode. One of those being if you like dragging files from your Explorer or Finder directly into Studio One. Presumably you're talking about Windows. So in Windows, in administrator mode, if you're dragging an audio file directly into Studio One from Explorer, you won't be able to do that in administrator mode. You'll have to turn that off to be able to do that. That's one of the things. I personally do not run Studio One 5 in administrator mode. I have dabbled with administrator mode in the past. Never really been that 100% sure that it's of any great benefit, particularly. There are people that suggest it. Jonny Gibe is one of those that advocates it. Sorry, I'm moving my chair in a little bit closer. He's one of my dearest friends, and he advocates it. But I say whatever works for you. You know, if it's something that benefits you and the way that you work in Studio One, then by all means go ahead and use it in administrator mode. Personally, for me, when you start up Studio One, the first thing it asks you is, you know, it comes up with a dialog box that says, do you want to allow your computer to make changes to the software? Well, of course you do. You're going to be making music. So, yes. And so you have to click that. And then Studio One starts. Can be a bit of a pain in the butt. It's one extra thing to click on, I guess. For me, that was the thing that made me turn administrator mode off. And I've just never turned it back on since. So I just start up Studio One and it starts. But yeah, it's one of those kind of, it doesn't really matter, I don't think, personally. But good question. And Dear Creek Audio, hello Chris, long time no see. I'm glad you're here. Welcome to the show. All right, so let's, before we get into any more questions and stuff like that, I want to show you something. And the reason why I want to show you this is because my good friend, he's a dear friend, Gregor, and he's a terrific colleague, Gregor at Presonus. He put out a video on, I think it was just yesterday actually, on the Xtrem plugin and how super duper powerful and useful and effective it is. And it really, really is. There are so many awesome applications, and he kind of demonstrated a few of them that make it really, really good, especially for EDM and dance music and that kind of thing. And it's got very powerful LFO capabilities. So kind of on the back of that, I wanted to show you how I use it the most common application that I use it for. So I'm going to show you that because Gregor didn't. So Chris Hambley, my good dear friend from many, many years. I've known Chris since I was probably about 14 or 15. Chris and I go way, way, way back. Chris, I'm very glad you're here. Welcome to my show. He says, Waves from Cornwall, nice to see you. Chris, so very glad to see you. Welcome. So everybody, make Chris very welcome in the chat. He is a great guy. He's a terrific entrepreneur, engineer, musician, and all-round hilarious guy in his own right. And he has his own YouTube channel, actually, where he puts out some fantastic original and cover songs as well, where pretty much everything is done by him. And they are awesome. So I very much recommend that you go and check out his channel because he is incredibly creative. And I just wanted to say that just because he's my pal as much as anything else. So there you go, Chris. Anyways, let's get into what I was going to show you guys. Hang on, I need to do that first. There we go. All right, so here we are in Studio One 5.2. For those of you that are not that familiar with it, I know Chris, my dear friend, is not very familiar with Studio One, so he's going to get to see this. But this is very, very cool. Now, I need to go to... No, I don't need to change songs. We're good. We're good in this song. So I'm going to play you just a little bit of this very short 30-second, I think it's about 30 seconds, piece of music. And then I'm going to show you how I use Xtrem on this Rhodes track here. All right, there you go. That, by the way, is probably nowhere near finished in the slightest. There's just, yeah. There's not really a lot going on with this. All right, so let me show you what I've got going on with this guy over here. Let's solo this track. Let's go back to the beginning. I'm just going to play the first maybe 2 or 3 bars of this. Alright, so you get a flavor, particularly if you are wearing headphones, you will definitely get a flavor of what's going on here. But if you're not, if you're just listening on a hopefully really good set of studio monitors, you will get a really good flavor of this as well. This will not be very easily discernible on something like cell phone speakers or anything like that, but certainly earbuds, headphones, speakers that you're sat right in front of, you'll definitely get a good flavor of this. All right, so let's take a look at what I have going on here. So the first thing in the chain is pedal board. Pedal board is extremely cool because you have a whole You have a whole bunch of stomp boxes that you can choose from. I have not yet done a video on pedal board, and I probably should, because especially for guitar players, this is immensely powerful. And the modeling of the stomp boxes is particularly awesome as well. So I will do a separate video on that, but skipping over kind of all of that for now, I'm using the Phase 90, this phaser here. And then I've got this chorus pedal in here, but I'm not actually using this chorus thing at all. And then that's going into a delay, set to a dotted eighth note. And that's kind of step 1. And if I take away the X trem and play that first section again, you'll hear just this phaser and the delay. And it is going into a room reverb as well. Alright, so that gives you a flavor of the delay and the phaser, and I've not got it set too fast. It's just set to 31%. You can really crank this and get some really totally weird effects, which is not what I want particularly. So let's close that up, and then we'll go into the X trem, because this is where the action really happens. So let's turn this guy back on. And we're in panning mode, and I'm using the sine wave LFO here. And I've got this set to a dotted eighth note as well, so it's kind of going in sync with the delay a little bit. And I've got the channel mode set to stereo, even though it's a mono piece of audio, as you can see. You can see here it's just mono, but with the channel mode set to stereo, it means that you get the nice stereo effect here of the panning. So we're going kind of gently sloping left and right here. So I think this is right, and then this is left, and you can flip it as well. There's a nice little flip button here. And you can have this sync to tempo, which is what I have here, but you can unsync this if you want something really, really specific on the speed. You can set that. So this is with the X trem in play. So that gives you that kind of nice classic 1970s Fender Rhodes sound that I think I fell in love with when I first heard Steely Dan's Asia. Well, it might have been Gaucho, actually, where I really heard this particular sound that we're hearing here. Yeah, it was Gaucho. I think it was, what was the darn tune? What was the song where I heard this? I'm trying to remember what the song was where I really heard this. Glamour Profession. That's the song. And I just fell in love with that particular sound on the Fender Rhodes. And this is how I go about achieving something similar to that. And this is kind of one of the other ways in which you can use the X-Trem. There's a whole bunch of other LFO patterns that you can do here, but this sort of, you've got a sawtooth, you've got square, you've got a whole bunch of others, and you've got all sorts of control over all sorts of different aspects of it here. I would say go play with the different LFO functions down here and try out the tremolo and the pan modes. They are very, very cool. And the LFO speeds, you can really crank this and go crazy with it. All right, so there you go. That's how I get that kind of classic 1970s kind of stereo panning Fender Rhodes sound. So I wanted to show you this because my friend Gregor did not show this, and I thought it'd just be cool to kind of add this to what he's already shown you. So go check out his video on the Personas YouTube channel. He goes over some of the EDM applications of it, which is very cool. He goes into a little bit more depth on the different LFO features. This is how I use it, mostly for just this application. I haven't really dived into the X-Trem in too much depth otherwise, but this is definitely worth giving a shot. And in fact, so much so, I've actually created my own effects chain, which I've called Panning Rhodes, that basically has both of these set up, and I can just drag this in when I want that on a particular song. And that is that's all going into a room reverb as well, which is just like a recital hall kind of size reverb with EQ going after it. So I'm rolling off the lows and the highs. So it's neither too bright nor too boomy. So there you go. I hope that kind of gives you an idea of something cool you can do with an electric piano sound. So there we go. We're back over here now. Hello again. Let's see. Let's see, what other questions do we have? Deer Creek is here. I think I already mentioned that. Mika asks, do you politely advise string players to recheck their tuning between takes? Occasionally, if I hear it, yes. But most violin and viola and cello players that I have worked with in the past, they all have incredibly good, they either have perfect pitch or they have incredibly good, well-developed relative pitch, which means they are very well attuned to their own intonation and their own sense of tuning. And quite often they would just do that themselves if they need to. It depends on how much time is being taken up between takes. To be honest, if there's like, we do a take and then there's like 15 or 20 minutes before we get to the next take, then, depending upon the humidity and the temperature of the room and anything else that's in the room, like heating, lighting, that kind of stuff, then yes, I might ask them to retune. But normally they would be able to hear that for themselves and it wouldn't be a problem. And most good players in between takes will be keeping their instruments warm anyway, so that they perform at the optimum level. It's the same with brass instruments. Brass instruments, when you're not playing them, can cool down. The metal can cool down. And when that happens, they can go out of tune. They can go sharp quite often. And there's not really a whole lot you can do about the intonation from adjusting the slides and the tubing point of view, especially if they're like pulled out to their furthest extent. And there's not really a lot you can do about the intonation on the instrument in that case. Then it's just a case they just need to blow warm air into it until the metal warms up and the intonation comes back. But yeah, most good professional players know how to look after that kind of stuff, in my experience. But if you have folks that aren't really, they may be good quality amateurs, then yes, a friendly reminder probably isn't a bad thing. And I would advise, if you're working with people that are like that, then yeah, just a polite reminder, hey, keep your instrument warm, please. Or, check your tuning. Make sure that your strings are perfectly in tune before we start again. that's a good thing to do. Just Bob is here. He says, I'm popping in to say hi, hanging out with my mom for the first time in over a year. You go and enjoy yourself. You do not need to listen to me. Okay? Family comes first. If you have family round for the first time in a very long time because of COVID, go enjoy that time because it is priceless and precious. And you know what? We may at any time go back into lockdown because of the variants that are circulating the world right now. So it is important. Seize this time whilst you have it. There you go. Got to get that off my chest. Chris Hambly says, thanks, bro. Really appreciate that. You're welcome, mate. You have more than earned it over the years, let me tell you. Let's see. Ziggy Ziegler is here. He says, greetings from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Yay! Pennsylvania in the house. I don't think Mike Neighbor's here yet, so I think you're the first. Let's see. The Dislike Twins are here. Of course they are. They have nothing better to do on a Sunday evening than hit the dislike button. But they don't realize that actually helps rather than hinders my channel. Dick Ricordio asks, how far are you from London? I am a good, maybe 6-7 hours drive away from London, something like that. You can probably look it up on Google Maps if you were to look up or Google Earth or something like that, and set your start point as London and then set your destination as Edinburgh, and set the transport mode by car or something like that. You get an idea of how far it is. It's a good few hundred miles, for sure. John Lake says, make a right turn at New York and end up in Scotland. Yep, that'll do it. Peter Brooks says about 900 miles. Let's see. Can you use X-Trem on stereo guitar tracks? You can, for sure. For X-Trem to really work, especially in panning mode, which is what I'm using it for, then the channel mode needs to be stereo. So if you have stereo guitars, wow, that S was really sharp. Sorry about that. Sometimes they pop out. I actually have a lisp, but occasionally my tongue goes down the side of my mouth, and that makes the S come really through. Sorry about that. So for stereo instruments, X-Trem is at its best, particularly if you're using panning mode with stereo source. So that being the case, it will work with stereo guitars, for sure. Mika says, no lockdowns in Florida. Pedal to the metal, straight to the ICU. Yeah. Thomas says, it's about 400 miles according to Google Maps. There you go. Yes, about 400 and... I think it depends upon which part of London you're talking about. If you're talking the centre of London, or where I used to live, which was in the southeast of London, it's a few extra miles. It's about 400 and something miles. 415 or 20 miles. But fun fact, when you get to London, it might take you 5 or 6 hours to get to London from Edinburgh. But then once you actually get to what they call the M25, which is the motorway that goes around in a circle around London, it could take you just as long to get from that motorway into the centre of London as it did driving from Edinburgh to that particular motorway, because that particular motorway is commonly referred to by people who live in the southeast of England and live in London as the M25 car park, because traffic is that bad. It's usually stationary. Let's see. Have you used Ableton Live, and how might you compare the show page to it? I have dabbled with Ableton Live, as you can see on my screen. If I go back over to it, you'll see at the bottom here that I actually do have Ableton Live, thanks to the good guys over at Ableton. For sending that to me. So yes, I do have it. I have dabbled with it a little bit. It's maybe a little bit more complicated than Studio One. It's a little bit more fiddly than Studio One, I will tell you that much. But as for what it can do in a live setting, it's pretty powerful. Obviously, I don't play live shows anymore. Have not played live shows for a good long time now. Mostly thanks to the collapse of my band, and then COVID hit kind of just after that. So I had no chance to kind of basically, rebuild a band from scratch. But yes, I had thought, actually, before we started developing Showpage, I had thought, maybe I will start using Ableton Live on a laptop out at gigs and, create some backing tracks or some additional loops that we can turn on and turn off live in certain songs. Because I had quite a large band, and the band got smaller and smaller, so something like Ableton Live would have been really useful, but didn't really have the technology to be able to do it, unfortunately. But yes, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. Ableton Live is pretty good. Some use it actually for music production in general. Like folks like Adam Neely, Mary Spender, people like that. They are big Ableton Live folks now. But yes, I don't use it for that. Where in London did you live? I'm originally from Selhurst Park, Thornton Heath, Croydon area. Oh wow, Croydon. Good grief. I lived in Lewisham. I lived in Peckham. I lived in Bermondsey. Those are kind of like the three areas that I lived in when I lived in the southeast of London. I was in London for 12 years. I started in North London in a place called Oakwood. And then I crossed the river over into the southeast. And I lived in Bermondsey for quite a long time before spending maybe the last 2-3 years of my time in London in between New Cross and Peckham was where I lived. So there you go. It's an interesting place, I'll tell you that much. Especially Peckham. Oh boy. It's like Glasgow, but it's like the rougher parts of Glasgow. Peckham is very like those. Quite a rough, quite a dangerous part of London to be. But there you go. That was my time in London, but I was very grateful to have had it. I went to university there and I studied jazz composition and audio, and I got my start in music as a professional career whilst I was there. I played in a few bands. I got started as a session musician whilst I was there, playing in a couple of studios in London, one with which was called Boundary Row, and I'm trying to remember the name of the other one. Those are the two. There were two that I frequented the most, and I played on a couple of film scores whilst I was there. That were one was recorded at Angel Studios, and the other one was recorded at Abbey Road. It's the only time I've ever actually recorded in Abbey Road. I've been to Abbey Road a few times, but that was the only time that I've actually recorded in the same space that the Beatles recorded in. That was pretty awesome. Is EDM and sound design music becoming more popular in the UK? Pass. Don't know. It's not my subject. I don't know. Mika is off to go and tend to family dinner. Good night, everybody. Happy Easter for those that do that. Please be safe out there. Absolutely. I second that wholeheartedly. So yes, Edinburgh is a pretty long way away from London. However, if you take the plane, which at the moment is not really possible, we're not really allowed to do that kind of thing, you would fly there in just over an hour. It would take you maybe like an hour and 5 minutes from takeoff to landing is about an hour and 5 minutes. And so I have done that because there are some folks in London that I still like to work with. And so I have done that where I've occasionally gone, okay, that's fine. I will come and do a session in the studio for your record. but you need to pay my airfare. So they will pay my flight, and I will fly down. I will once I get to the airport, I take the train from the airport into the center of London. Then I take a bus out to the studio. I go play the session, and then if by the time it's very late at night, I will stay over in a travel lodge or something like that, and then fly back the next morning. Or if it's only a short session, like a 3-4 hour session, then I'd just fly back the same day. I've done that many a time. So there we go. So that's my potted history of being in London. All right. So we got any Studio One questions? I would like to get some Studio One questions in the chat, and then we will call it a night. So if anybody has anything that they would like to see, I would be happy to show it. How do you know about Mary Spender? Just a popularity? Well, she has a very large YouTube audience, and a number of YouTube channels that I'm subscribed to have collaborated with her, and so she's also appeared on various guitar magazines. So yeah, she's an exceptionally talented young lady, and her YouTube channel is pretty good. So if you don't know who Mary Spender is, she is a guitarist, fingerstyle guitarist and songwriter, and a really good vocalist. She has a beautiful alto voice. Can she go low. She can go right down into her boots. She's got some low notes that she does really well. So let's see. Thank you for that answer there, Old School Funk and Soul, answering the EDM question. It's been popular in the UK since the late 80s rave scene. Yeah, I missed out on all of that stuff. Really, if anyone was to ask me kind of what musical period, what musical era would I like to have been a part of, to have lived through, for me, it's got to be the bebop era. The mid to late 1940s through to the mid 1950s, that kind of 12, 13, 14 year period from the birth of bebop in 1944-45 all the way through to 1955-56, maybe up to 1959, when Miles Davis put out a record called The Birth of the Cool, which is a great exploration of modal jazz and bringing modes into jazz, kind of like as a breakaway from all of the chord changes that were a big thing with bebop. But yeah, that would be where I would love to have been a part of that. I would love to have either just been attending at jazz clubs, at jam sessions and that kind of thing, and to have been able to see Charlie Parker play for real, and Dizzy Gillespie play for real, and those kind of guys. I would have loved to have been a part of that. But I guess, I have a bit of a, rosy, romanticized view of that period. It probably had its darker, seedier side as well, as kind of like, hey, the music is just awesome and fantastic. I'm sure, there are other things that went on as well. But yeah, that would be the era that I would have loved to have grown up in. And I would probably have been a rarity as well, being a Scotsman in New York at that time, for sure. Peter Brooks is asking me to play us out. Really? You want me to play you out? David Anthony says, how do I make a feature request? Very simple. Go to answers.presonus.com, and when you're there, you can sign in with your normal Presonus account credentials. Once you've done that, go to the Studio One feature requests section and have a type into the search box what your thinking of. So if you're saying something like, I would really love it if there was support for surround sound, for example. Support for surround sound in Studio One would be great. And so you go, great, the thing to do is check that there is not already an existing feature request for it. Because duplicate feature requests don't really help anybody. So they get deleted. We regularly clear out, I think maybe once a week, we go through and we clear out all the duplicate feature requests. So don't make a duplicate feature request because it will get deleted. So do a quick check, type it into the search box, whatever it is, for example, surround sound support. You will find that there is already a feature request for that, in which case you can go, aha, all I need to do is find that feature request and hit the thumbs up to vote it up. And that's you done. That's you having added your weight to that particular feature request. And you might be thinking, that's a bit anticlimactic, just clicking that thumbs up button. Surely that's not going to have any effect. Well, it actually really does. Because here's the thing, the development team over in Hamburg, that's where they go to see what our customers are looking for in future versions of Studio One. And so they look at what is the most popular. That's what they do. They look at what is the highest voted up feature requests, and those are the ones that most likely get added to a version of Studio One going down the line, whether it's immediately or whether it's a little bit further down the line. But it's the highest voted ones that tend to get added to Studio One. Sometimes they'll pick something out which goes, you know what, that's a really great idea, but it doesn't have many votes. But we think it's a great idea anyway, and those get added. So don't make duplicates. If you type in the search box for your particular feature request and you find that there is nothing showing up for it, great, you're in luck. That means what you can do now is you can go and ask a question. So you click on the Ask a Question button, and then you select the Studio One feature request section because that's where you want it to go. All right? And then in the body text box, that's where you put your feature request. You say, I want this, and it would be really great if we had this and why you would like to see it. And then you just tell all of your other Studio One friends who use Studio One, hey, go vote this up. And the more votes it attracts, the more likely it's going to be added to a future version of Studio One. So that would be my advice to you, David. Dick asks, how can you slide the tempo track? Like when I insert measures in a project, the tempo track remains. Let me see. That's going to take a little bit more demonstrating, Deer Creek. So I will answer that question with a video on the subject, okay? Because that will take a little bit more demonstrating. Sound on sound recording with audio like you can with MIDI would be awesome. Use Studio One like a looper without reverting to layers, etc. Make feature requests. That's what I suggest you do with that. But yes, as for your question about the tempo track, I know exactly what you're talking about. That's going to take a little bit more of an involved demonstration for that. So I will answer that with a video, or the other thing we can do is we can feature that as the first half of the show next week. If you are happy to come back next week, we will feature that. So one or the other, I will do one or the other. I'll either have it as a featured video or we'll do it as the kind of opening section to the show next week. Just do me a favor, Chris, if you would, please. Go to my website. The URL is there. JonnyLipshamStudios.co.uk. Go and drop me an email, okay? I would appreciate that, and just remind me of your question so that I make sure that I don't forget. That would be cool. Looking forward to a good tempo track video. Yeah, I'm not likely to make a bad tempo track video. I don't make bad videos. Any bad videos that I make never get to my channel. Trust me. I have strict quality control protocols. All right, we got anything else? David Anthony says, I would have loved to have been in London to see Eric Clapton and Hendrix in the clubs before they were famous. Absolutely. Unfortunately, my family immigrated to Australia just before that time. Wow. Yeah, that would have been awesome. I would love to have seen Hendrix play. I'll admit, and I'll tell you why. Because there's something about Hendrix's guitar playing and the sounds that he created that just remind me of John Coltrane, and maybe in the last 2 or 3 years of his life, when he was beginning to push the boundaries of what was possible on the tenor saxophone, and what was possible kind of harmonically, melodically, improvisationally. And I think it would have been cool if Coltrane and Hendrix could have met. I know that Hendrix and Miles Davis met, and I know that they jammed together. So that is something I do know happened. But it would have been super awesome if Coltrane and Hendrix could have met. I mean, I'm not 100% sure, but just listening to Hendrix's music, it wouldn't surprise me if he was familiar with Coltrane's music. Just from some of the things, some of his language, his musical improvisational language, just tells me that maybe he was familiar with Coltrane. That would have been pretty cool. Thanks for that, Chris, I think. All right, so I think we will call it a night there. I said this was going to be a short show because it's Easter, and I want to make sure you guys don't miss out on your family time, because that's more important to me than anything else. So I will bid you a very good evening. And to those of you who are in the UK and are crazy enough to still be up at 1:45 in the morning, welcome to the Insane Asylum, and I will see you all on Wednesday over at the Home Studio Trainer channel for another edition of Songwriting Simplified. Hopefully we'll be over there rather than over here. That'd be cool. So yeah, that'll be at the same time, 6 p.m. Central Time, which is midnight UK or 1 a.m. Central European Time. And then we'll be back here again on the following Sunday next week. And we will do a full 1 hour long show next week. All right, folks. Take care. Good night. Wait, that's totally the wrong thing I wanted to do.